Welcome back to Conversations for the Good. Good morning, Dr. Jane.
Good morning, Anna.
How are you today?
I'm just fine, thanks. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. In our previous conversation, you guided us through a sequence of skills, each an aspect of a mindfulness practice. I thought we might continue our exploration and experience with mindfulness and talk about where and how we apply it in our daily life.
Well, Anna, that's a great idea. So let's move into the practice. Let's continue this exploration really by allowing ourselves to be in that experiential reality of a practice as it plays out within us. So let's first of all move our attention to our breath, allowing it to be just as we find it. And we're just attending to how it moves, how it enters our nose, the sensations of the in-breath and the out-breath, feeling the sensations from our nose across our upper lip, and just noticing the rhythm of the breath. You might notice whether it's fast or slow, or other qualities like is it shallow or soft, loud, deep. And this turns our attention to the present moment awareness. This simple act of turning toward the breath, which is always moving. So we're noticing that we're aware of the breath. We're aware that we're aware. And then we're noticing now our body's response to the breath and noticing it especially around the chest and the abdomen. Those slight movements. We might also notice the mind wanting to wander, thoughts coming in, thoughts wanting to pull us away. This is just how the mind works. There's nothing wrong with this. But what we want to do is notice it and gently bring ourselves back to the breath and the body sensations, the response of the body to the breath. So we're in this observer part of ourselves, watching very consciously, without any judgment or criticism, watching, being aware, and being open to, as we watch, a sense of kindness and curiosity as we observe our thinking and our body sensations, any feelings or impulses.
This really is the key, isn't it? We're choosing to be in awareness at this moment, noticing whatever shows up, but sticking to our intention to watch without getting involved with our judgment or opinions.
That's right. That's right. So we're watching. So let's continue to watch, observe the body responding to the breath, watching the thoughts come and go, and now moving our sensations to begin scanning the body, starting with the bottoms of our feet, sensing into our feet, not thinking about our feet, but actually feeling sensations. It might be the texture of our socks or shoes, the solidness of the floor, and then steadily moving up our legs, letting the attention come first to the top of the feet, from the ankles then up the lower legs to the knees to the hips. Just following the sensations, any contact to the surface or inner sensations. Hips to shoulders. The full sensations of the trunk of the body. Shoulders to fingertips, taking in the expanse of the arms and hands. And then our neck, balancing our head and all sides of the head. Thoughts come in, mind may wander, and we're just noticing that as well. always coming back to sensing the body, and now sensing it from the crown of our heads to the bottoms of our feet. Just watching whatever is arising. We may become aware of different aspects of what's arising, like noticing the thoughts that show up. Are they thoughts about the past or the future? Noticing that they may be triggering feelings or body sensations like tensions or tightness. But we're not engaging. We're merely watching and observing from this kind yet neutral stance. So it's like taking it in, and our response might be something as neutral as, oh, how about that? Oh, yeah, there's that tightness in my chest. And the point is that we're becoming keenly aware of what's going on behind the scenes, behind our scenes. So we're cultivating a new way of viewing ourselves and also others and the world, and engaging a new perspective that doesn't come out of the old interpretations of our beliefs and our conditionings. So this inner workings of the mind pretty much determine the quality of our lives. And it's not just what happens to us, but it's how we respond to what's happening that's so important. So this silence and this present moment awareness really becomes the imperative that allows us to access insights and wisdom that we're normally not connected to. And also this inner GPS, this guidance system that will guide us to conscious choices and eventually to right action.
So, Dr. Jane, it's so easy to have that awareness slip away when all the demands of our daily routines. Can you tell us a little bit more about how we might reconnect?
Sure, Anna. We often realize that we're lost from our awareness, that we've kind of let go of it because we're experiencing some level of reactivity, and it's at that moment of realization where that observer self knows that we've disconnected from the awareness, that all of a sudden we're wrapped up in some drama or some reactivity. As soon as we're aware of that, we're really back into the awareness. That realization puts us squarely back into the possibility to move right into present moment awareness, because I'm saying, oh, this is what's happening. Geez, Jane, are you sure you want to do this way, Jane? It kind of stops me in my tracks so that at this point, I can make a mindful choice. I can begin to do the breathing, because the question is, do I want to stay in this or do I want to move out of it? And by moving into my awareness, I really open up to this inner guidance, this inner GPS. One of the most popular techniques that I've learned, and it comes out of my training in the mindfulness-based cognitive therapy, is a technique called the 3-minute breathing space. And it uses roughly 3 minutes, sometimes less than that, and 3 parts to the technique to help us re-engage in the present moment awareness, re-engage with our observer self so that we're making conscious choices. So let's do the technique here. It's 3 minutes. There are 3 parts. And I like to think of it in kind of the shape as we do it of an hourglass. So we have the first minute that is really kind of a wide kind of perspective of checking out all the thoughts and feelings that we're having. And then in the second moment, we're really narrowing our observation down really just to the breath. Okay, really gathering all of our attention into the breath and the breathing. And then on the third moment, we're expanding out again with a body scan and breathing with the body in its entirety. So it's a lovely piece. It can be done, as I say, once you get into the practice of it, can be done 30 seconds, 30 seconds, 30 seconds with a great deal of benefit. But let's try it. Let's try it right now, Anna. Okay. So always go to your breath first, just to kind of settle in. Notice that it's right where you left it. Nothing to fix. Brings us quickly into the present moment. And now we want to bring our full attention to all of the thoughts and feelings and body sensations that are happening right now, that are occurring right now in this kind of panoramic view. Okay? Noticing what's going on for you. Images, demands, what's pulling. Really observing all of it. And now in the next minute, we want to gather all of our attention to the breath, solely the breath. The in-breath and the out-breath. This is really narrowing our attention. Noticing how the breath enters and leaves the body. It's all about the breath in the second minute. And then in the third minute, we're moving our attention to a very, very brief kind of a mini body scan, starting with the bottoms of our feet and just gently but quickly moving up from our feet into our legs, the trunk of our body, all the way up to the shoulders, and from the shoulders down to the fingertips, the neck, and the head, all sides of the head. And once we reach the crown, just kind of scanning very quickly to the bottoms of our feet. So we really have taken in our body in its entirety, and we begin to breathe with the wholeness of the body. Just gently breathing and noticing this totality. And then as we end the technique, just gently coming back to noticing any sensations, any shifts, or any changes. And it's at this point in time, once we're re-engaged with the awareness, we can decide from our best and highest self, because we now have access to it, what do I need to do next? What do I need to do next? And sometimes the answer isn't clear right away. So we might have to give ourselves time, or maybe come back to it later, do another 3-minute scan, just to allow that to percolate and allow that guidance system to really deliver what we need to do next.
This is a major shift in 3 minutes or less.
Can be.
Yeah, major shift. So what you're saying is life will look different, feel different, because I'm re-educating myself, or you call it reprogramming. Reprogramming the body, thinking, feelings, which means we can choose to respond differently and be the best. And then the best part is also, feeling this calmness, which is amazing.
Oh, it can be very calming, Anna. Very calming, particularly if we're coming out of high levels of reactivity. That's often a byproduct. There are many byproducts of practicing mindfulness techniques regularly, and there's a lot of scientific evidence behind it. Things like we tend to be more effective in managing stress. We're more effective in our response to challenges, whether it be work or relationships. We're more prone to have positive emotions, a greater sense of well-being. It also tends to lower anxiety and worry, and certainly can decrease depression. And also, the thing that I love about it is that it also, by calming ourselves in this way and having this byproduct of the calming, very often we're able to access our creativity and, of course, lower our emotional reactivity. So it's lovely to have these byproducts, but the real focus is to see the reality for what it is, moment by moment, to not escape from it. I mean, we're not repressing thoughts and feelings, and we're also not indulging them, being very present with them, and the reality allows us to assess how we're contributing maybe to the problems in our lives or a problem in our life, and how we can begin to be part of the solution.
So, Dr. Jane, this is where we begin to see through our backstory and our lifelong conditioning, correct?
That's so right, Anna.
So all those common reactions based on past history that we can create new dramas.
Mm-hmm. Well, you're absolutely right. There's so much of that material that we're not fully conscious of, yet we're making choices from that unconscious and often obsolete material. That's information that is from our past and really no longer serves our best interests, our best selves, or even the greater good for that matter.
And you have also brought up in previous conversations the effects on the brain's fear networks.
Oh gosh, yeah, that's right, Anna. That's the interplay of those bundles that we've talked about. The bundles are the emotions and the thoughts and the body sensations and also the impulses. These are usually based on the past and very often projected into the future. So we're really being hijacked by things that, as I say, are misinformation or they're obsolete or worn out. They just don't work for us anymore. So remember, it's not the mood or the thought or the feeling that's really the problem. It's really our response to it. So the fear network is part of that 35,000-year-old survival system that's housed in the more primitive parts of the brain, the brainstem and also the limbic system. And then there's that little smoke detector, the amygdala, that once that gets set off. I mean, it's here to protect us. It's here to alert us to where there might be danger. But once that gets set off, it can be either real or imagined. It has us in reactivity. So the bundles send this information to this alarm system, and it compares it to past experiences. And the alarm system really, and this is the catch here, the alarm system values speed over accuracy. So it's firing up the neural system, the fear network, boom, right away. And yet very often we're reacting prior to any kind of complete or accurate assessment of the situation. So the more sophisticated part of the brain is also, because we're in this danger, supposedly, it goes offline. So we're really left to that primitive brain to provide the information, and it really can be very hard to kind of reel it all back in.
Well, Dr. Jane, let's zoom into this kind of situation. Let's look at this type of reactivity and how the practice of mindfulness can intervene.
Oh, that's a good idea. Let's use all the bits and pieces, the aspects of the mindfulness practice that we've talked about, and our capacity to really look at what is the mind reacting to. And as we do this, notice how the observer self really can tally up the variables, with a gentleness and with a curiosity that will really benefit us in the long run. So we imagine that we find ourselves in reactivity. If there's something that is a trigger for you right now, just drop into it. It can be a little or a lot. I would suggest that we not pick the most fired up component of reactivity for our purposes right now, but nonetheless, something that maybe is an irritant. And we begin the 3-minute breathing space, because this acts as a pause or a timeout so that we can re-engage with our observer self and present moment awareness. So remembering that in the 3-minute breathing space, first of all, we're going to the breath, because that just anchors us and settles us. And then next, we're going to that panoramic view of everything that is showing up in this particular reactivity that we're going to address. And there might be extras that show up, just whatever is there. And just breathing with that as we observe it. because we want to recognize when we've been triggered. We want to recognize what's there. By doing this, we're really using our wise, skillful self to take a look at it. And next, we want to narrow our focus solely to the breath. It's all about the breath, nothing else but the breath. And now we're moving ourselves to that mini body scan. And I'm moving through this fairly quickly. But the scan from the bottoms of our feet to the tops of our head. And then breathing with our body in its totality. Just allowing the breath to be exactly the way it is. Breathing with our body. Allowing our mindful awareness, the observer self, to just take in whatever is showing up. And so we've re-engaged, and this is important because we can have greater clarity and really recognize how past experiences and past traumas may be contributing to what's happening right now. So we move our focus now to the reactivity. What happens to still be engaged with the reactivity? Taking a nice easy breath, just feel whatever discomfort is there. What's being triggered? What's set off? Any thoughts or feelings? And just breathe with that. And being aware of sensations. Again, breathing into the sensations of the body. What's happening with the body? And breathing into the region of the body where the reactivity tends to be most intensely registering. And just breathe into that. And now noticing emotions and thoughts that may be arising. And just breathe with those. It could be fear or anger or justifications. Maybe embarrassment or sadness. And as best we can, holding these emotions in loving kindness and breathing with them. And maybe there are associations from the past. Just see what's apparent and breathe. Maybe moods or memories, images from the past. And letting compassion be present with whatever is arising. Staying with ourselves. And as we breathe again, just looking at what beliefs might be arising about myself or others, or the situation. And again, allowing compassion for maybe that young part of myself that developed the beliefs, or the values that were so important to maybe our family, our school, our church, or synagogue, or mosque. We're just noticing that. And again, we're observing, we're not engaging. And then noticing any feelings that come up again, or sensations. Just holding whatever arises again with compassion, curiosity. And then noticing, has there been a shift? Has my higher self, my best self, has it come online? And breathe with that. Noticing what new responses, what new patterns may be surfacing. Anything that may contribute to making a conscious choice, a right action, and just breathe with that. And sometimes the intensity of the reactivity still feels overwhelming. And if at any time during the practice that occurs, always coming back to the breath, solely the breath, just to stabilize, and then moving back out to investigate and explore what's happening. And sometimes we need to take a break from the practice for a variety of reasons, and that's okay too. This is something that will wait patiently or not so patiently for us. And we can always come back to it at another time, at another sitting. So whatever we need to do at this point in time, we can do it. We can resume the technique, or we can come back later. And there it is, Anna.
I love the way this brings a mindful awareness to every part of the challenging situation that we're in. I'm not projecting or blaming myself or anyone else.
Well, that's right. And we're using the mindful practice to really explore deeply what's happening and why. And in doing this, we're increasing our self-respect, our self-confidence, our sense of being a genuinely good person. And in the long run, it really helps us build our self-worth and allows us to support that manifestation of our highest potentials. So the barriers to this, are things like they can be a mix of kind of fixed beliefs that we can't shake or we don't want to shake, attitudes, assumptions, and also compulsive patterns, like reactivity.
Now, this really focuses on challenging situations, yet we shouldn't wait for those situations, obviously, to practice. We need to be doing these practices daily, even multiple times during the day.
Well, that's absolutely right, Anna. The breathing, the 3-minute breathing scan, the body scans, observing, from the observer self, being able to access that. The more we practice, the more we build kind of the mindful muscle. And so it almost shows up automatically. And practicing the present moment awareness throughout our daily routines can be really an essential for building this kind of mindful muscle. Anything from, there are a myriad of things. Actually, in mindfulness, they're called mindful bells, things that occur during the day that we can really allow to be a mindful practice. Anything from washing the dishes to driving. Think about all the times we're waiting on hold these days. Those can be mindful moments. Eating, even preparing food can be mindfully done. Cutting the grass, of course, this time of year, we're shoveling snow mindfully. Standing in line, which is one of the things that I have always had difficulty doing. But to do it mindfully really allows things to progress much more quickly rather than, being in that reactivity of not wanting to wait. Walking is a wonderful mindfulness activity. And one of my favorites that I started out with years ago was red lights and stop signs, to take a nice, easy breath and just drop into the observer self. And these are, they may sound trivial, but the research indicates, Anna, that the frequency of doing these kind of quieting, mindful techniques sometimes is more impactful as far as shifts in the brain, changes in the brain, than the more lengthy practices. So it's frequency over duration that can sometimes have the greatest impact. The most important thing is to remember to include these practices just as part of a daily routine, and it becomes our practice then in life. And pretty soon life becomes practice. So it's an opportunity, finding the opportunities, to pull in the mindful practice everywhere. And I also want to mention that these are the practices that we have done, the 3-minute breathing space, turning toward the difficulties, the body scan. These are all videos in our Conversations for the Good lineup. They're all available.
Well, mindfulness is truly a gift, and being able to practice mindfulness daily has made such a huge difference in my life, and I know it will make a difference in our viewers and listeners' lives. So thank you, Dr. Jane. Until our next conversation.
Thank you, Anna.